We're here. Sorry it took me a few minutes, but what I get for trying to schedule something at the last minute. Hey, Randy, I'm here. Hey, George. I don't know if y'all can hear me. Hello? My notification shouldn't be off, Randy. Hey, Roy. How's everybody tonight? Hey, Keith. How are you tonight? How's everybody been doing? How was your weekend? Come on in. Come on in to StreamYard. Hey, Keith. So this week's been kind of interesting so far for me. We've made 83 round bales of hay, and wife was in the hives over the weekend and pulled feeders and knocked some of them down a little bit, and everybody looks good. We've put them to bed. Hey, Jack. Hey, Danette. We dropped on AP tablets this weekend too. Hey, Richard. Well, what do you call a few, George? How many hives you running out there in Iowa? Evening, Matt. Eating 6 out of 14. I'm judging by the name you run layings hives, right? Hey, Mike. So what is something everybody wants to talk about tonight? Yeah, I sell layings hives, George. I've got a 25 frame and a 14 frame in the store. Yeah, it's getting colder and colder everywhere. We've had a pretty good week though. Today it was in the 80s. So last night it was in the 30s. Tonight's only supposed to be in the 50s. So we've had a pretty good week so far. Oh, here comes Charlie. Hey, Charlie.
Hey,
How are you tonight?
all right. Did you just get started or
Yeah, I've been going a couple of minutes.
because I seen last week there was two login screens or
Oh,
something.
YouTube created 3 this week.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey everyone, glad you're here tonight.
Yep, I am too.
Uh,
So we dropped our AP tablets on this weekend.
oh, did you?
Yep. And it was almost 80 degrees today.
Mm-hmm.
And bees have been flying like crazy.
Yes, it was 80 degrees here today, and they were flying quite a bit today. Actually, well, they were flying, but they weren't really flying that much. I drove the tractor around to look at them while I was in the cab, and um, it they were flying, but not real heavily. Some highs were more pronounced at the entrance than other highs. I kind of wondered, well, are they okay, type of thing, but they seem to be okay. Hey, Brian,
ABCBs.
Richard, Jack, and Danette, and Mike, and Keith, and DC. But anyway, um, they were flying some. They weren't out in great numbers. Now this was, I don't know, 3 o'clock or somewhere in that time frame, 3:30 this afternoon. But I haven't been in them for a couple weeks at least now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't really going to get into them. I went down to a neighbor here that stopped by to ask me to take a look at their hives, and kind of knew, and they had three hives, but hive beetle infestation was pretty bad, or worse than what I'm used to. I'll put it to you. Not as bad as, let's say, South Carolina.
Well, if
But
you're saying it was an infestation, that's pretty bad.
well, I put a trap in every box, an old trap. that he had, and we did find one queen, or at least I sighted one, and the other two, they didn't seem to be queenless. So I presume they're not. I didn't see any eggs or brood, but even the one where I saw the queen, there wasn't a little bit of cat brood left, but everything else was not. There wasn't any eggs or any larvae. But it's it's that time of year. It's shutting down some.
Yep. Did you see how much pollen did you see on them?
They had a lot of pollen in their frames and stuff.
Well, that's good.
There was definitely a lot of pollen frames. The problem they had was it's in the edge of the woods,
Yep.
and with his land that he has, that's about trying to keep it to where it doesn't bother the rest of the people in the area and stuff is made it hard for him to get it out in 100% sunlight. So I think that's part of his beetle problem.
Yeah, if you don't keep it in sunlight, you're going to have a beetle problem. Hey,
Yeah,
Chad.
100% sunlight as far as my thing. But hey, Chad, Matt. Um, so anyway, we put Apricot on. He had some tins of it, 50 grams. So definitely cool enough for that treatment at that amount. So hopefully that'll something is better than nothing. Let me put it to you that way.
Yeah, something's better than nothing.
So hopefully that I told him to do it another 2 weeks, and hopefully that'll help his bees out, and hopefully his what would you call it? His hives are will survive, and they're queen right, and things of that nature, and all that. So um, that's what I did over the weekend as far as that. Oh, I also another young guy that is close to me pulled out, or Brian pulled out his Instavap today and going to start tomorrow. Okay.
Mm.
And made up 40 gallons of sugar water for Scott, the guy that helps me out. And he also has about 6 hives. And he's got a good week of warm weather. Going to be in the 80s most of this week until the end of the week. So the bees all are taken down pretty good. And let's see. I put I think 55 pounds of honey in the bottle and tank. Filled it
Hmm.
back up. Had a had an extraordinary week of selling honey last week. I sold 48 pounds of honey,
That's that time. It's
which
that time of year.
I don't normally sell. I mean, not that maybe around Christmas or something like that, but seemed like they really came in and bought a lot and all. So for me, that's a good amount. I mean, usually I average around 20 pounds a week,
Hmm.
and you know, I kind of look at it this way: I don't have to go out. I don't go to any fairs or any venues and sit there and for hours and trying to sell different products. I mean, I know that Brian from Flower Street, that's his main way of doing things, um, and he's very good at it. He has a great looking display along with all the other high products that he sells, and does quite well. I'm just, I'll say, lucky that I have a storefront, you might say, right here at the house.
Yeah. So Rodney posted that, and I agree with DC's answer. You might want to start taking some pollen and putting out for them in pollen feeders, or putting it directly on top of the frames in the hive, some pollen substitute to help them out. Because without that pollen, they're not going to have enough food to get through the winter.
Yeah. Um, let's see. Rodney's down in the Carolinas, I believe.
Hmm.
Yeah, I presume.
Yeah, surf is good, but they need that pollen this time of year too. And if they're not getting that goldenrod flow, that goldenrod pollen, they got to get pollen somehow.
Yeah. I don't know. It seems like Maryland's got a lot of pollen, and
Yeah, we got a lot going on too, but and they're still bringing some in.
well, that's true. I had some. I didn't have as much goldenrod right behind the hives um, I don't know. We were cleaning up the log pile area, so we didn't have a lot of weeds, which were goldenrod. But there was goldenrod up alongside the state highway there, along a bank side and stuff. So there was plenty of goldenrod for them to get there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, to be quite honest with you, I actually got rid of, let's see, probably 40 frames of pollen, just packed full of frames that, as pollen ages, it degrades in um, nutrition value, and the bees really don't eat it after so long.
Yeah.
And it, I don't know. To me, it kills my usefulness of my frames and all that. And I used to sell or used to put out a lot of pollen powder, some man lake pollen powder. But I kind of quit that because I found that they pack it into your hive so much, and you got frames after frames after frames of pollen in there, and they got no way of place to lay lay eggs and stuff like that. So anyway, um,
No, I'm not saying go wild with it, but they do need that pollen to get through the winter.
yeah, I mean, in this situation, all right, Rodney just stated there. Let's see, he put pollen sub and they haven't touched it. Well, that tells me they either got um, some natural stuff around. I mean, I would check your bees and see whether or not they're bringing some pollen in. They could be, but um, it kind of depends where you're living at. For me, bee season is pretty much over with, except for treating season. And the hives behind me, that's what they're looking like. And as the temperatures start to uh, go down, and I'll get closer to November, December, I'll put my wraps around the hives out of carpet and keep as more of a wind block, and change over my entrance reducers to more of my homemade mouse guards made out of wood. And I would say probably starting next month, um, hit a 45-degree day, I'll get out there and do some OA like Brian's starting to do. I'm not sure whether Brian's weather is starting to turn or not.
Hmm.
And somebody's just text me, am I taking orders for nukes? I'm like, no, not doing that anymore. At least I don't, not this early. But um I don't know. Oh, since you do any alfalfa farming,
I
raising
got
alfalfa?
I've got alfalfa all around me.
Okay, I got a call today from a friend of mine. Actually, the uh, the person within a month put hives along their property line, and they have a house and a lot, let's say a
Yep.
couple acres. And right next door to it is the farmer who called me up and said, "Hey, she concerned. We're putting in alfalfa field there, and they spray
Yep.
about 5 times a year. I think every cut is what's it called, permethrin."
Yep.
And she was concerned about the bees and her relationship with the um,
Beekeeper.
neighbor, yeah, the beekeeper or her neighbors.
Well, they need to become friends.
Well,
I
they're
mean,
friends and all like that, and I was just wondering, I mean, I know that bees are after the alfalfa blossom, but usually you cut that every 28 days, about 2/3 of a bloom, and then you're ready to cut it, from what I gather. That's what we
mm,
used to do.
most everybody here, when they see it getting ready to bloom, they they will cut it within a day or two of it getting ready to bloom, and then they spray it.
They spray it after they cut it,
Yep. You go.
and that's supposed to kill the leaf hoppers.
Yep.
They don't spray it while it's up.
Nope.
Well, that how detrimental is that to the bees?
It's an insecticide.
So it's going to kill them, but I'm wondering whether the bees are actually going to be interested.
Well, how
Um,
many hives does she have?
I think the beekeeper's probably got, let's say, 5 or 6 hives.
She'd be better off taking wet sheets out there that morning that they're going to spray, and putting over those hives until
Hmm.
the sun's up. And when the sun's up, typically, if they spray it like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, it's dry by 1 o'clock. So then they can go out there and pull the sheets off.
Right. So I didn't know what to. I mean, obviously, like you say, it is a pesticide,
Yep.
literally a bug pesticide,
Yep.
because weeds are a pest also. That's sort of a, what do you call it, a generic term.
Right. But
But
you've got herbicides, pesticides, and insecticides.
and fungicides.
Yep.
All right, I was just wondering about that.
All right. Permethrin is a neurotoxic pyrethroid. Synthetic. It's found in spray in, insecticides as well. And it's probably a 10% solution is what they're spraying. Just going back through and looking at different things.
Hmm.
I mean, you can buy it on Amazon, but I believe you have to have a license to buy it and apply it.
Well, they have their license and everything.
Yeah.
They farm a lot of acreage.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they have a pretty good size. I think they probably got a 90-foot boom.
Let's see. It is a it's used to treat lice infestations, scabies, and it's yellow light to orange brown liquid.
I think what's everybody talking about here? Insulating, getting ready for the
Yeah, getting ready for
winter.
winter.
And that's correct.
Yep.
Um,
You don't want condensation on the top because then it drips down on the bees, and that's not a good thing.
yeah, if you're going to do a, as Bill Hirschbeck called, is a condensing hive where you're insulating. If the main thing is if you don't insulate the sidewalls, let's say if you have a wooden box like mine, insulating the top is quite beneficial.
Yep.
I've been, oh, I don't know, a friend of mine, the one I helped get some sugar water going this weekend, he's a carpenter, so he's supposed to have uh some insulation laying around. So I'm gonna maybe experiment with a few highs. I've been over the years of putting in a small wooden block in, I think about 5/8 thick, enough to kind of jack that lid up, the intelli cover, just a little bit, just enough to let the moisture out. Of course, it's also letting the heat out.
Yep.
And I've also used a license high where it was fully insulated and no upper. I blocked all the upper ventilation entrances, and it worked. My bees got through the winter, no problem. I
Yep.
did see some moisture. I believe it was on the top of the um, frames, um, but seemed like the bees didn't have a problem with it. I think DC's up in DC. Aren't you up in West Washington State where the
Yep. That's where he's at, Washington State.
and he's up there more or less the North American rainforest.
Yeah. Hey,
Hey, that's
Kodiak.
why. Hey, Lee.
Somebody got snow over the weekend.
That's John.
They got 15 inches in Vermont, and
Of
now it's all
snow.
gone. Now it's all gone. Ski resort. My brother said the ski resorts were open for a couple of days. Now they're closed again.
You know, West John is up in Colorado where Brian is, but I think they're in two different areas.
Yeah.
Brian's in outside of Denver. Um,
I haven't seen Todd yet tonight.
no, I haven't. He was out running around with one of those multi-seated golf carts, I guess you call them, with his, I guess, with his daughter and friends and stuff.
Oh, you mean a side by side?
Yeah, something like that.
That's right.
I know one thing: we need some rain. That's for sure.
Yeah, we need it too, but we finish up hay today. We're gonna be picking it up tomorrow because it was too
And you
wet
ain't.
Saturday.
I mean, you haven't started your shelling corn yet, I guess.
Oh no, still too wet. Beans are getting there. So, imagine both of those are going to go up at the same time. So, ones that put first time practice this year. Well, DC, I mean, that's what we're here for. That's why we talk about these things. We try to help everybody out, give them a good solution to their issues.
J and D bees. He's up in Wyoming.
Okay.
And Vince, he's
Your
done
beans are done. I wish I could say the same thing.
starting corn.
So, does everybody know how to make a sugar brick? Because I know a lot of people with candy boards and sugar bricks about the same thing. So I know a lot of people make them, um, and they do use them, and they work for the most part. Uh, I don't use them because we use fondant, but I know a lot of beekeepers around here do use them all the time, and they have pretty good luck with them. Got
AJW.
one that when he makes them, he insists on putting piece of a pollen patty in the middle of it, and you know,
I know where he got that idea from.
I know where he got it from too. Um, keep telling him not to do that, but he continues to do it. So, and he has issues every spring as well.
What's
So,
the issues with that? Too many bees?
well, the queen starts laying early, and then he's got to continue to feed even more and more and more after the sugar bricks are gone, and he loses bees. He loses a lot of bees.
Through what? Swarming or
No, they
or
die out because they're hungry. Because he's giving them pollen and there's too many mouths to feed. They're starving.
so he lets them run out of food.
Yeah, that's what he does.
I just want to say, hey Vince, welcome from South Ontario. We have Alex. He's not in. He hasn't come in and everything. And then Vince Longman April there. That's Doug. He's up in Saskatchewan. And Doug now Driftwood or what's that? Oh, Drift Watch. What's Drift Watch?
I don't know.
You'll have to explain that one, Doug. Always. It's a. Is that JW? Is that a website for sprayers that know
Yeah.
whether or not that's what it is?
Yep. We have the same thing here in Virginia. It's called shoot
Yeah, we got it in
bee
Maryland.
check. Bee
Huh?
check. It's called bee check. So it's the same thing as drift watch. You register your hives, and then the sprayers are supposed to check it and make sure that that you've been contacted, that they're going to be spraying. So, but I have a question for the Canadian beekeepers. So, I heard a rumor today, and I was talking to somebody about it, and they couldn't confirm it one way or the other. But the Apivar that's used in Canada is a stronger dose than what's used down here in the lower 48. If somebody could answer that question, I would really, truly appreciate that. because I've been asked a number of questions about that here lately. Who did you say was from Canada in here? Russell?
Vincent, Gagnier. He's from Ontario. It's B check if you're signing up for.
Yeah, but it may not be B check where they are. It may be Drift Watch.
Okay.
Because they name it something different all over the place. Hey, Vince, if you can answer that question that I just asked about the Apivar, I'd appreciate it. I figured one of them would be able to tell me. Hey, Tom. Yeah, it might be easy to find out, DC, but I've looked on the internet and I can't find anything on it unless
What's
you know.
that?
DC said there could be a difference in regulations on the dosage amounts, and he said he thinks it would be an easy thing to find out, but I've looked and I can't.
Hey, JW.
Hey, JW.
I've got a question for you. I'm going to be on. Yeah, let me clear.
What's that, JW?
Let me clean my screens up so I can talk without echoes. If I don't cut you off.
Okay.
That was a nice looking bull in the background.
George, you're right. It's Maryland B check for me since I'm in Maryland.
And it's Virginia B check for me.
All right. And then, like you said, Drift Watch. There's different areas if you're an applicator and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I tell you what, Vince, if you give me shoot me an email with that answer, I would appreciate it.
What date? April is different. Different up in Canada.
B. And so, Vince, my email is shannondoabsupply@gmail.com.
I don't know.
Let's see if good old Google can do anything.
That's like Brian says here. Apivar is made in France.
Yeah.
I doubt it's different, but maybe worth asking. True. I think what Apivar is made by
Vito Pharma.
Yeah. Hey, Carl, what's happening? Hey, Tom. I'm glad to hear that your knee, Tom. That's good. I know my beekeeping friend, he got his second hip operation done this past week. So on his other hip. So now he's going to have two good hips.
Well, that's good.
JW, you made it.
Okay, maybe I'm tuned in now. I hit the wrong button here a while ago. That Drift Watch is actually is a national registry. A Drift Watch is. I've subscribed to it ever since it came out, but I'm not sure how much good it does. The professional applicators are supposed to check, with these various registries before they spray in areas, and I'm not sure. Some of the more reputable ones, some of the mom and pop operations, I don't think do. And my big problem in my area is aerial applicators. That's the ones I worry about the most. That stuff. It does drift, a lot of it. They spray from these planes. And you're getting a lot of individual people that's doing the drones. They're spraying
Yeah.
a lot of drones now, and them is just mostly. And I'm not saying this facetiously, kind of a mom and pop operations, most of them.
Yeah, because I know some of there's one actually used to be here on our place, big farmer. I didn't know, but he actually owns his own drone.
Yeah.
And it's as big as a bed of a truck.
Yeah.
A flatbed. That's how big it is.
Yeah.
He was spreading cover crop seed over top of the I think the corn up here. I'm not sure. Yeah. And of course it's GPSed and back and forth, the machine. And then he tell it to go home, which was the truck, and then fill up the hopper and then go back and start out where he stopped and all that stuff.
Those are only about 40 grand a copy.
Mm-hmm. Well, when the man spends $125,000 on a computerized fertilizer buggy, he can afford that.
Sure.
But he's when he's farming 6,000 to 8,000 acres.
I got a question for you, beekeepers. Last night I fed my bees. I'm feeding sugar water right now. Feeding about 20 pounds a day of sugar. And I went out I've been most of my what I call my starter hives, my this year's nukes and splits. I'm still feeding pretty strong. And I went out to my starter hive yard, and I'm just feeding with jars on top right now.
Right.
And I went out, and my bees are normally very docile. And I can pop off the jars, and I just dress like I am now and go down through there and switching the jars out. Well, last night I started popping jars off, and I probably got stung. I don't know, 20 times total. And after about 4 or 5 stops, I said, well, what's going on? And I could smell a faint smell of a skunk. And I thought, I've had me a visitor. And anyway, I was getting stung up so bad that I just shut down the feeding operation. And I said, in the morning, I'll come back and put on my at least a veil or something, because they was quite feisty. I walked around the hive. I've got my my starter yard, what I call my starter hives, is kind of in a circular pattern around an old dome, one of my dome canvas covered structures. And I walked around the side of that, and about 20 feet from that last hive, there laid that skunk dead. Do you think those bees could sting a skunk enough to kill him? That's my question. Anyone got any experience in that?
You say the bee stung him dead? You think?
What else could happen to a skunk when he's laying dead there 20 foot from one of the hives?
In front of the hive.
Not in front of it, but he was 20 foot from at the side of one of the hives, yes.
Yeah.
Anybody, you had experience with that, Bill? You got any varmints in your area?
I got plenty of varmints.
Yeah.
Typically, they die of lead poisoning.
Well, you got to be there when he shows up. I'm not
true.
I went on a rampage with some of my varmints here a while back before you went on the air. I did a bunch of skunk or raccoon trapping.
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm going to have to start going on the skunk skunk rampage. I was just curious if anybody had ever
I
thought.
mean, it seems to reason that if a skunk gets up in the front of a hive, and I guess they would be like any other human, if they get enough stings, it can kill them.
Well, that's the only thing I can. That's the only thing I can think of that skunk would have died, within 20 foot of the hive, and it all happened, at that was last night, so it all happened the previous night or day during the day. But it wasn't just one hive. He'd been trying. I've got all my hives on stands, and
Yep.
they're on. And the stands are sitting on rubber mats. Some of my old hog floor mats, if you know what hog floor mats are,
Yeah,
rubber
I
hog
do.
floor mats. And that's what I use underneath my hives. I got a bunch of them, and let them get cleaned up. And anyway, there's Doug's coming back. Never seen one Doug they can clean out a hive. I'm sure that as I had all these hives, every one of them they're normally quite docile. I don't normally even wear big gear when I'm feeding. And boy, last night, and I thought, what's going on? They all was in attack mood. As soon as I pop old jars off the top of them, I just got them on migratory lids, jar feeders
Yeah.
instead of
Well,
buckets.
they were stirred up, that's for sure. That's why they came out like that. They were stirred up.
And they lit me up. I'm telling you. And I walked around, just happened to walk around there, and that skunk was laying there dead. I was just curious as if anyone thought that had an experience enough that if they stung that skunk enough to kill him, because that's the only reason I can give. unless he got so fully foundered. But he wasn't in any of the hives. I didn't see any scratches, or I've got all my hives on. They're all of them about 16, 18 inches above the ground. I've got them all on individual stands. So, but anyway, that's my story, and I just was curious as to anybody else that had a situation where they found a dead predator that had died from bee stings.
Well, maybe they whispered in his ear and scared the crap out of him. He died of a heart attack.
Well, I don't know. I do know this. A few years ago, I bought a high dollar show heifer. It was for one of my kids to show, and paid big money for it. We won't go how dumb I am. Anyway, I brought that show heifer home.
What about that?
Maybe.
And I put her in a stall that I hadn't had cattle in for a while, and I had a feed bunk in that stall. And I come out there, and the next morning, and that show heifer was dead. And I got to looking around, and got the vet up there, and got to looking around, and I had a hornet's nest underneath the deal, and them hornets had stung that heifer, and she went into anaphylactic shock and killed her. So I know it can happen in animals, but I don't know. There's quite a bit of difference between a skunk and a cow,
Yeah. Could have been a snake bite.
So anyway, that was my question.
Yeah, I know. I had a cousin down in North Carolina, and he had these what's those big dogs from over there, and Saint Bernards, and they had a litter of pups, and they got dying, and there was a rattlesnake close by.
Yeah. It could have been a copperhead. You never know.
I think it was either a copperhead or rattlesnake. It's years ago.
Maybe I could just got the tip over hive. Okay, Brian. Good answer, I guess. I didn't my hive didn't show any damage or anything. But I know that he'd been messing with them because they was all on the warpath.
Sometimes all they have to do is walk through the apiary too.
That might be the case. I don't know.
I don't know either. It just
In my this is a separate episode. I call it my starter hives. They're hives that I started this year, and now in my production hives, which is a different yard, I see a lot of signs of where the skunks have scratched and dug around. I've got a lot of grubs in my area, and then a lot of them skunks is after the grubs more so, I think, than they are the honey. But I've never had a real problem with them bothering my hives that I knew of. But I've got something going on now, I guess. So I'll have to start trapping again, I suppose.
Yeah.
yeah.
So otherwise, they're in good shape, JW.
Yeah, my bees are. I seem to be in good shape. I did my fall cleanup with the Apigard, and I've got that all cleaned off, and I'm going to start my first round. I think I'm going to do the old 444 oxalic acid, and I'm going to start that next week. I guess it's hot here. It's too hot for. It's almost too hot to work bees. It's 80 in the 80s here this afternoon. Hot.
Yeah, it was in the 80s here too.
Yeah. So, and they said it's going to stay that way through the next 10-day forecast. So hot and dry. I've got some CRP trees. You know what I'm talking about? Where I got trees planted in some set aside ground in the river bottoms.
Yep.
And I'm mowing because I checked those trees in there 10 foot of squares. Where I can mow in between them, get a lot of cottonwood and trash trees, grows up in there. Try to keep them cleaned up. And I went up there this afternoon and I've got a little 50 horse John Deere with a 6-foot bush hog where I can go in between those trees. And my little old tractor was acting up. It's hot and dusty and dirty. And I finally give up and brought it home and cleaned the tractor up. My tractor was heating up. I was getting so much trash in it. So
There's your answer. It's the same as in Canada and anywhere else.
Yeah, 3.3%.
It is, but I don't know. My thing is, I'm since they did their National Honeybee Survey, and it was only while Aprivar was in compared to after I had used Formic 3 years prior. I'm going to see. I'm curious to see what the percentage of mites are in my hives, which I'm sure it's higher than what it was 3 years ago.
Well, I'll tell you what. I think you'll be pleased with that Apigard.
Well, that's what I've here lately. I felt a little more confident in myself to be able to do that. I think I don't look at it to be as detrimental as long as I hit them with 25. I think, and hopefully, if we can get around an 85 degree 3 or 4 days, I think it'll work out well.
So, did you get any AP tablets?
Yeah, I got them in there right now. I don't know whether or not in retrospect, I think I should have maybe threw them in there after I'd pulled the honey supers, being warmer. Not sure.
I don't know.
Have you checked them? Are the bees? Is this your first application with the AP tablets, Charlie?
Yeah, it's the first time I've ever used them.
Are they? Have you checked them? Or they seem to be consuming them?
Yeah. I had one nuke there that I wasn't feeding because I knew it was queenless, and they were going to try to requeen themselves, which I knew, which it did. It failed, but they were eating that tablet. I mean, it wasn't gobbled up, but it was
Yeah.
they were eating it from underneath, in between the frames
Sure.
and on the edges of it and stuff like that. And of course, condensed that hive into some and other hives. And I took that tablet and stuck it on a frame of another 10 frame hive. Now I was feeding during, that's the thing. I kind of have a routine where I pull my supers off. Let's see. Yeah, pull my supers off and I put Aprivar in, and I really didn't know when to. I was thinking that Appy tablets would be a good over the winter treatment. So after I get done doing the Aprivar, then I put Formic Pro on,
Mhm.
and I guess it was after I took Formic Pro off. That's when I put the tablet in. That's when I threw my feeders on. I'm done feeding now. And I understand it through Bob has talked about while they're feeding, they're not going to go after the tablet. I mean, I did raise up I could see where they're at because they raise up. That's the only downside of it. They jack your frames up a little bit. And I pulled one of the frames up just to kind of look down in there. And it was in there, but they were chewing on it some. So, I guess the time will tell as far as come March or April when you go in there and see whether or not the tablets are some of them either there or they're completely gone.
Yeah.
And all that. I don't know whether they'll consume this before they consume the honey they've stored in there or not. Not sure on that.
I don't know. It's gonna be a good thing to watch for because I got mine on there, and in the Enel hives, there's enough space. It doesn't push a frame up because that rabbit joint's a little deeper.
Yeah. Yeah, on mine, they did push them. Hey, Brad, they did push them up a little bit, I mean, not up out of the hive where they get in the way or anything like that.
Right.
Just enough. It raised it up off the rabbit. I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, maybe. And, but I mean, even with the frames pushed up a little bit, I could still set my top hive feeder on there. It didn't get in the way of, where it didn't jack the feeder up because the frames were jacked up or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everything was still fine with it,
Yeah.
And they had, between I took the honey supers off somewhere around the 1st of July, around the 4th or 5th, right around the holiday thing. Anyway, I went back 2 weeks later and there was still a bit of quite a bit of a flow, and they had filled up that top medium full of honey. Sometimes I kind of think about, well, maybe I should have kept my feeder or my supers on and captured that, but then you're getting closer to the lanternfly honey coming in. And I don't particularly care to harvest that. I've had one guy talk today. He got a bottle over the weekend, and he said it tasted a little bit different than what, not as, I don't know what, it's just different than the previous year. I said, yeah. I said it rained while the locust was blooming part of the way through, and then it kind of washed that bloom out of the way, and then the poplar kind of come in behind it. I said, that's why you see the bottles on the darker side this year.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is. Depends on what the bees can get into.
Yep.
So, yeah. JW, didn't you say you were feeding 1-to-1 or something like that? Or?
Yeah, that's all I ever feed. I never go to 2-to-1. When it's 2-to-1 time, or way I feel about it, I make my own I'm gonna call them sugar bricks. I call them sugar boards. You know, I make them.
Candy boards.
Yeah, candy
Yeah,
boards and
candy board.
You
insulate the
fill
top of
the container up with sugar, and it hardens, and then come wintertime, you just plop them
Yeah.
upside down on there.
I set them on there. I make mine where I put a inch of insulation. I don't use inner covers. I use them as more or less as the inner cover, and I put an inch insulation on the
Yeah,
top
I've
of
tried
them.
that. I tried that myself where uh I went out there, like you say, close to Christmas time, pull the inner cover off, and yeah, I had it was 3 inches deep, and I just plopped that whole thing on there.
Yeah.
Hey, Ian, and um plopped it on there, and I used it one time. There was the only problem I found with it is that I did the method of cooking it, where it was like it was like boiling for hard candy.
Yep.
I was at a friend of mine's house. He did the cooking part of it. And we worked all, it was a long, long day doing all that stuff. Him pouring his thing and I'm pouring mine. And I said, I don't think so. This is way too much work for me.
No, I
And
don't cook it at all. I
right.
add I use on my eights, and I put a candy board on every colony I've got, uh, just as a reserve. If they use it, fine. If they don't, I melt it down in the spring and add it back to my feed. You know, liquid feed. Normally I feed gallon buckets, but right now I'm just feeding because I'm going by hives, how much they consume. I'm just using quart jars right now.
Yeah. So I did it that way. And then like everybody's talking about making sugar bricks. Uh, I mean, the way I do that is 10 pounds of sugar and a cup of water and a tablespoon or two of white vinegar and
Yeah.
apple cider, whatever anybody wants to use in that acidotic way, and let it dry, and it dries up hard.
I actually put my Apis activator right in my candy boards, but I don't cook anything. I just wet it with water. Then I've got me a little old packing deal that I made out of a two before, and I pack that, and it just gets hard as a brick, just like you would if you made cooked candy boards. That cooking I'm like you, that's too much trouble.
It's too much work, and
Yeah.
and you can get it. Um, you got to watch the temperature like a hawk, and
Yeah, you
you got to get it just so for it to do. Some of those candy boards were perfect, and some of them were like they weren't quite so perfect.
yeah. Because you scorch that sugar,
Yeah,
you're
I think.
done.
Yeah.
You might as well start over.
Hey Matt, yeah, you putting fondant in there. Yeah, they'll eat the heck out of it. I don't know. I would say I would keep the fondant for more of harsher winter time, and I
Yeah.
would do more liquid feed right now. Use your fondant for more of
January, January,
January
February.
emergency feeding, February, something like that.
Unless you got more money and sense, that stuff's expensive. You got money
I,
highs.
I tried it, and my club would buy a pallet of it, 50-pound blocks from
Mhm.
Golden Barrel, and which was close by too. And yeah, from David Burns. That's a real joke, bro, Brad. Uh, yeah, I mean, what's he calls those candy boards up there? He calls them. He has a fancy name for them. Um, oh shoot. Hey Barry. I forget what it's called. Winter Be Kind. Thanks, Carl. That's
Oh,
it.
David Burns. Yeah.
Winter Be Kind candy bars. I'm like, really?
Well, he sells the heck out of those things, Charlie. I mean, it's a commercial deal, but they sell a bunch of them. Lord, he's got lots of following.
Yeah, yeah. That's just like I seen a video tonight where some guy's on there and you can treat your mites, with natural beekeeping. And here he is putting all these essence of oils in a mixture. And then he's got his pesticide sprayer heater, bug sprayer with the heater up cooling on there. And I'm like, buddy, I said, Fat B Man did that 15 years ago, and I said,
Yeah, he did.
I said, i.e., it's illegal for what you're doing there,
Yep.
and if you're contaminating everything inside anyway, and it really doesn't, it might work for some, but that, Fat B Man did that 15 years ago, and that's when I was starting, and I looked at all that. And then along he came with the oxalic acid vaporizer pan. And that was before that was illegal, or before that was legalized. And then in the meantime, I think Obama got in there. He got the EPA to legalize oxalic acid. And then Provap came to town from overseas. And I guess Man Lake was the one that's where I bought mine from. That was the only one I can think of who was selling it.
And then you had the firefighter out of the Midwest that invented Instavape.
Yep.
Oh, you mean the little
With the 2 gram cup on it, and you put it in the rubber cup, turn the Instavape upside down, and put the cup on it, and put it in the hive, and turn it over and tap the cup. It falls down on the heater.
Yeah, but are you talking about John O'Bee's? The one that's got the plastic blue electrical box? Is that the one?
No, this was a firefighter out of the Midwest that invented the Instavape, and then everybody copied his design.
Yeah, Brian, I don't need to develop anything. It's called Apis Biologic, better known as rocket fuel, or better known as Ian's secret recipe.
Hey, JT and Kathy.
Well, like I said, I don't know if it does any good or not, but I add the activator to my candy boards, in the winter since it came out. I don't know. It's all that's kind of like a lot of my fishing lures. I think about half that stuff's made to catch.
I see you definitely got a suntan there, JW.
Well, I don't know. It's
you got sunglass eyes. I can see that much.
Lighting and camera system. I don't have the most elaborate lighting and camera system in the world.
Well, I don't either. All I got is a light up right above my head.
Yeah.
Buddy there behind you looks happy.
That's one of my she's long gone. That's one of my show heifers that I had a few years back. I've got a bunch of those old pictures. I just tired of looking at the same background all the time. I switch them around.
Yeah, I don't know much about the pollen sub stuff, but from Apis Biologic, but I know that now this past year I didn't have much luck with it because it wasn't its fault. It was the fact that my queens went down on me. But the year before that, I had more bees than I could ever seen in my life, and I had bees from the bottom board to the roof with Apis Biologic.
Yep.
And I had a good crop this year, and hopefully my queens will be that energetic next year until I replace them next year. And I'm trying to get myself on a 2-year replacement program.
There you go.
Well, it's like everything else. That was something I was thinking about today. I go to a lot of conferences and I have not heard one person on the conference speaking engagement line talk about the importance of replacing your queens and the reasoning behind it, why you need to replace it, and depending on where you live in this country,
I
whether it
say
be with
Bob Benning talks about it all the time, but
Yeah.
he doesn't talk about the part of it depending upon where you live.
yes, but he also does. I don't remember. I'll say I don't remember him stating the reasons behind why. It's the why. That's what affects me in my decision making. Give me the reasoning behind why you want to do these things. And that was something that I learned the hard way this year by um having to replace my queens because they were petering out or they died out. And talking to my friends up in Canada there, Doug um especially James out there. And talking, another one was talking to Troy Hall, who I had on my show. And we actually talked about it on the phone. And I also talked to Mickey Hardiman at Hardiman Apiaries in Georgia, where they, supply thousands of queens to beekeepers across the country and packages. And, it's like me and, oh, me and Brad here were talking about it, and Joey, the Cajun Homestead, and all, where down where they live in Louisiana, they have no winter, so their queen is producing eggs 11 months out of the year,
Right.
if not almost 12. If you really think about it, I mean, their winter might last, and they're what they call a winter. And I think if Brad wants to come on, he can get more detail about it tonight, but they might get a week, maybe 2 weeks of, I'll say, 30-degree weather, and that is it. And then Joey talked about when he was starting beekeeping that his instructor talked to them and say, this is how you let the hive make a new queen and all that kind of stuff, naturally. And he says, you need to make a brand new queen every year. Every spring, it's got to have a brand new queen. Of course, their spring is a lot earlier than what ours are. They might start requeening in February because of the warm weather down there. And, and Brad was talking on the show here, oh, I don't know, let's say a month ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where he used to have issues of a lot of hives dying. And since he's restarted requeening on a yearly basis where he lives, he has, dropped the problems with hives dying out on him, where the queens are not wore out. Their, reproductive system is wore out because they are, running for 11 to 12 months out of the year.
Yeah. And now I know the reasons why we do it every 2 years is if you keep a young queen in the hive, she has a less of a propensity to swarm than an older queen. So that's one of the main reasons. And then the other main reason is we control our genetics that way. We keep good genetics in the hive all the time, which means we have a better stock of bees, and it makes them easier to work, easier to deal with, and they're not as aggressive. So that's why we requeen every 2 years.
Yeah, I've often heard over the years, all about, for swarming. And to me, that was like, I don't know. To me, I just kind of, I think, what do you call that? Like, brush it off to the side. I said that's not a good enough reason to requeen. Or, if you're a 4 hive beekeeper or a 6 hive beekeeper, and you're talking $40 to $50 per queen, you think, like, I think I'll chance it, not have to worry about the swarm part of it, and not spend that kind of money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we do half the apiary. We requeen every year. We requeen half the apiary every year,
Mhm.
and it rotates through. But we have certain line of bees that we like, and that the people around us that we sell nukes to, they like because they're easier to deal with. Now, once that nuke leaves from here, if they don't requeen, well, that's on them. You know.
Now, Brian, so Brian, do you have experience with these Latshaw queens? I mean, it's the first time I was stopped at Bill's, and he was selling queens this past summer, and he was telling me about his queens, and I had never, you don't hear people talking about them that much.
Mm-mm. No, there you go,
What's that?
right there.
Yeah, well, that's Brian. I was just wondering whether or not he had some of them. So,
What I didn't tell you Friday was our queen yard got hit by a bear.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Man.
Um, we lost 2 breeders, and the breeder that we had in the Enel hive,
Mhm.
he couldn't. The bear didn't even get in the hive. He couldn't get it open.
It has locks on it, don't it?
It does.
Yeah. So, Brad, I know we talked this before, but your past experience where you weren't replacing queens on a yearly basis. Of course, you're down in Louisiana, where, I mean, what's your season? You're shutting down maybe a month at the most.
They don't even really shut down. They always have a little brood year round, just about.
So, do you create a brood break?
I did a lot this year because I requeen everything. So I'm basically creating a break, in most of my hives uh, throughout the season when I'm requeening. Because I don't have, like right now, I have one queen that's over a year old, and I
So,
only kept her because it was the one I was using for a breeder.
so the what I guess what I'm trying to ask you is, do you naturally create a brood break to give your queens a break?
No, no. You mean like cage them?
Yeah, cage them for a
No,
couple weeks.
no. I don't have anything set up to cage them or nothing like that. Um, the thing is, whenever we get cold weather for the 1 or 2 weeks that we get it, it can be in the 70s to low 80s, and we get a front and it drops to 30 degrees the next day. So we lost a lot of bees like that because the bees are they don't cluster. And if we get one of them overnight fronts, I lost a lot of small hives like that about 3 years ago because they just were um, chilled all over the frames. They wouldn't even cluster together because it happens so quick. Because, like I said, it stays warm just about year round. I mean, we don't. They might cluster in the morning in January, but come midday they're out flying again.
Yeah.
Because anyhow we get down, the lowest we usually get down to, if it's a hard winter, we might get down into the low 20s, and then that only lasts for like a week or two. But when it gets down to the 20s, that's I'm talking about at night. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
early in the morning, but in the daytime, it's usually hits 40s. Even when the once in a blue moon when we get a snow, um, it might snow at night, but it's melted by the next day at 12
Next
o'clock.
morning, it's gone.
Yeah, it's gone. The only time we ever had snow like that would last a couple of days is when they call it. We get a Arctic blast,
Yep.
and it kind of like hangs out for 2 or 3 days, and then by the fourth day, it's all gone and melted. So we don't hardly ever get snow. It's just like a little event, like it happens in the daytime and it's going the next day. We get a lot of freezing rain when the fronts come in. But as far as me brood breaking the bees, no, I don't do it. I've always wanted to try it, but
I mean, it's not hard to do. It's not hard to do at all.
I see that guy from France, Richard.
Yep.
He has like special frames. Like in the
Yeah.
center, he has a cage, and
Right.
it's a big cage where the queen can run around and other bees
Yeah.
can
You get them from Better Bee. They got them here too, Brad. And Better Bee sells them. They're quite
Oh, yeah.
expensive. They're about $35 a piece, but they're called queen isolation. Isolation.
Queen isolators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we do is we'll take a queen excluder and put the queen of the hive down in the brood box so she can't come up, and then we'll take and put the queens that we want to cage. We put them in a regular queen cage, and I've got the orange boxes, the shipping boxes, and we'll put them in those shipping boxes and set them up on top of either the frames or on top of the inner cover with a space, about a 3-inch spacer, and they'll come up and take care of them. We leave them there for about 2 weeks, and then we introduce them back into the hive.
Okay.
What you got, Joseph?
What's going on?
How's it going, Joe?
All right.
Joseph, tell them when you first started beekeeping, how your instructor told you how to requeen. You were requeening automatically or the hive was doing it automatically every year.
What we do, you're talking about in the spring, right? What a lot of us do and have done is use the double screen divider board.
Right.
And my date is March 1st, somewhere around there. And I'll throw that double screen divider board. Well, I look in to see what's going on in the hive or not. I'll throw it in like March 1st.
You talking about on a double brood,
On a double D.
double
Yeah.
D?
And in most cases, 9 out of 10 hives, that queen's going to be on the top. So the bottom box will be queenless, and they will make
Queen cells.
emergency.
Yeah.
The top, I only have nurse bees because everything flies back to the front entrance.
Mhm.
The entrance to the divider board is in the back, which it probably wouldn't matter. But when they fly out, they don't.
Do you ever run
Yeah.
into the problem of since they're up at the top that there's no eggs or nothing at the bottom to make a
That can happen, but in most cases, that's one thing that we like to rotate in January. If it's a big strong hive, it's not possible. You don't have to do it. But if it's
a smaller
stronger in the top than it is the bottom, we rotate them. That way they're having to work back up again.
So that way,
between the rotations and the split date is 2 brood cycles. So they're usually going to have eggs in both boxes.
Oh, okay. See, that's what I didn't know if you were rotating first or or what?
Rotating January 15th-ish, somewhere in there.
Okay.
But anyway, when you put that divider board in, they lose their queen at the bottom. They have to make a new one. So there's your brood break. The top, she's going to lose all her flying bees. So she's going to slow down and not lay eggs, or hardly any if she does. So that's typically another brood break. Now, it's just a momentary brood break, because they're going to start flying eventually, and she'll start laying. You could actually move her, the whole box or just the queen, off again, and all those flying bees are going to go back to the main hive again, and you done broke her laying rhythm again. So there's a full brood break.
Whenever you you since you splitting them up with that double screen board and you're moving that older queen, does she still is she still strong enough to make you a honey crop that year? Like, is there
Yes,
enough bees and brood to that you can get a full honey crop off of her?
Yes, it will. A lot of times, if it's a good queen, even after that little small brood break, they will make honey.
Okay.
They will make honey again. Now, if it's an old wheat queen, it might not do it. But if it's a good last year's queen, it'll do it.
Because I was wanting to do that with a lot of them. I was going to make me some double screen boards, but I still wanted to make honey with some of the hives. So I wanted to make me a nuke by putting that double screen board and a new queen, and still make honey with the it's not really an old queen, because I bred them all in June and July, but still wanted to make honey with the older queen instead of the new one that's fixing to hatch out.
If you do that every year, we kind of give and take. But if you do that every year, you're never going to really have a queen older than the year old. Because a lot of times what I like to do is, when I do it that way, I'll actually take her off with a couple of frames after she gets rolling again and got a lot of eggs in there. You can take her and a couple of frames off again and put in a nuke box for reserve. If you need a frame or you need a queen for emergency or something like that, and your top box is going to make, or wherever you put that top box, it'll make another one, or you can throw a cell in it. So a cell from the bottom. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times what we'll do, the way we were always taught, if you have a bunch of the emergency cells in there, go to knocking the stubby ones down. But I quit doing that, because some of the stubby ones ended up being some of the most healthiest queens I've seen. So if I've got 3 or 4 frames with 5 or 6 queen cells in it, I may pull or mark that box, and then when I find one that doesn't do right, for whatever reason they didn't make good sales, I could throw that frame in one of those other boxes.
Yeah.
Now
what I have done is wait till they start making swarm cells, and then just pulling the swarm cells and some frames of brood. But I was thinking about using the double screen board, like when they start making swarm cells, put a double screen board and put my swarm cells in the bottom, and leave the older queen at the top.
Yeah,
and that way I can move her off.
You can do that.
That's what Ed did for years. Now, what had happened, a lot of them had got ahead of him, or he got behind and was finding a lot of swarm cells one year. And he got to liking that, so he'd wait till they all started building swarm cells and go in and do his splits then. But by the time I get started, I'm already behind, so I don't try to wait for that.
It's hard to beat those swarm cell queens. They make some good queens.
Yeah,
that's my favorite.
Because I found a big hive with a bunch of swarm cells this year, and I made 6 or 7 nukes. I think I made a video about it, but 6 or 7 nukes with the queen cells, and those queens, I mean, they were late. They were like April. I want to say I put them just like 2 frames of brood, and the queen cell and a good bit of bees, but all of those 7 made at least a box of honey for even their first year. So I mean, they did good compared to some of the other bees that I actually grafted. It's like they just come out firing frame after frame after frame of brood.
Usually, when you make them make emergency sales, you can kind of tell what queen already needed replacing. You can kind of see the way they're building the cells and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you can kind of tell by that something was already wrong with her. So
Yeah.
when you do that, you can knock all them down and move one of them extra frames over there. It's a learning curve to it, but it's a good method.
Someone told me before in the chat, because I was using emergency cells to do it. They said like if you pull your queen or do it on a double screen board and they start making emergency cells, you should go in there 3 days after you made the split or whatnot, like taking away the queen, and smash all the ones that they started first, and leave the ones that are still open and or the ones that they have started last, because those are the 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 more accurate age larva and egg that they used.
I've heard Bob Benny say that before. Go in there 3 to 5 days after you've made the split. Or I think he's even said like 5 days. If you go in there at 5 days, anything capped and you got some still open, you can knock those cap ones down if you think they started it too early or too late. I mean,
Yeah,
but
because
I have went in. Me and my grandson has went in one time, and we had one that thing had, I know, 15 good cells in there. Some of them were capped, and some of them were still open. And we closed it up, and I marked that hive, and I said, I'll come back and probably steal some of these. And when I got through going through all the hives, I said, I'll go back over there and snatch some of those cells out of there. When I come back, about a third of those cells were gone.
they had taken them down.
They had took them down themselves.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Yeah,
And
because
that
they realized
was
they made too many.
And what I do, I'll put a little arrow kind of above where all the cells are on the top of the frame. I'll put a little
Mm-hmm.
mark on there where I know there was a queen cell growing. And when I come back, about a third of them were gone. And I didn't know if they tore the open ones down or at that time, because that's several years ago. I didn't know if they tore the open ones down or the cap ones down. So I guess they have a way of knowing what they need to do.
and that was within, let's say, an hour or so, still being in the apiary.
No, that was actually a day or two later when I
Day
went
or
back
two
to
later.
steal some.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
See,
see, a lot of times when they tear those cells down, number one, they know they've made too many, and number two, there's one that's hatched out somewhere, and they've got a queen that's
It,
gone out to
it,
get mated, and they'll tear them down and chew them up.
yeah, it could be. There's a lot of possibilities there.
Well, from what they said in the chat, or it might have been me listening to Bob Benny, I don't know. On a certain day of the age of the larva, they're gonna cap that cell, so they know. Like, let's say you took the queen away, and 3 days later you find, or 4 days later you find a capped cell, a capped emergency cell. It's because they chose a larva that was already aged, and they went ahead and made it and they capped it, where they still got some that are open, because I think what is it, on day 6 they cap it?
Yeah, that's after it hatches.
Yeah.
If you,
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
you count,
Yeah, day
if you count
5 or 6.
if
yeah,
you count the egg, it's day 9 is what they say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we usually always go back in the 7th day after we've made that split.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That way, you usually got most of them are capped by then on that 7th
Yeah.
day. So we always pick the 7th day to go back and check them.
And you can notice that too when you graft. If you got some that are older than the others, they'll be the ones capped first on your cell bar.
Yeah.
It's like they know how old that. I mean, they're gonna know, but how old that larva is, and it has to be capped at the certain age of the larva.
Huh.
Yeah.
But I've kind of gotten away from that method. I've been using more of what Bob Benny does when he's making nukes. He's pulling nukes up and putting them above the double screen board.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm gonna go back to the old way and just pull nukes from that when I get ready. That way I'm replacing my queen, because doing it the other way, she stays in there longer, and if you're not careful, she'll get ahead of you because you got to come back and do that same thing again in just a few weeks. With when you're just pulling nukes out,
Mm-hmm.
if you got a strong frame and you only pull 5 frames out for 3 broods. I used to try to leave 4 broods. But then this past year, I left 3 broods in the main box when I'm doing the Bob Benny split, I call it,
Mm-hmm.
and take everything else. I think if I do that again, I'm gonna leave 2 broods, because around here, they'll get started up again so fast it's pathetic.
Yeah.
But that's a whole nother split. That's not.
Well, which way are you talking about? Because he does something 2 different ways. He like uses a queen excluder and puts brood above, and then lets the bees migrate up to the brood, and then he comes back and pull the split.
Yeah. But see, that's kind of what I've been doing the last 2 or 3 years, mostly. But I go in a double deep. I go through and pull. I pull every brood out but 3. Or it used to be 4, but I found out that wasn't enough. I pulled every brood out but 3 down in the bottom, took both boxes. I leave the 3 broods and some food in that bottom box. Then I'll take 3 good broods and 2 foods for the nuke. And I'll have that second box. So you're dealing with 3 boxes. I'll have that second box. Anything remaining after I fill up that bottom box like I want, food frames, anything remaining to go in that second box, and anything missing that I took, I put new plastic in. And you stack the nuke in the middle that day and let them migrate. You have a queen excluder, and the queen is pushed all the way down. You either find her and put her down there or shake them all down. I kind of get ahead trying to just tell it fast. But the queen is in the bottom. Put the nuke on top of the excluder in the middle and give them a few hours or the next day to migrate up to all the brood and equalize themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And the next morning, come pull that nuke box out, set the top box down, and put the double screen board and that nuke you built and walk away from it. And you can either let them make their own sale or come back when they know they're queenless and they start making sales, tear them down, and then come back like the next day and put sales you want in there.
Yeah.
And it works great. It works great. I've got several videos on it, but when I do a video on that, it takes so long to video all that, it gets boring.
Yeah, it's a long process.
It actually, you can probably do it in 5 to 8 minutes without talking, telling what you're doing. Just bust them all apart and pull what you want and put it back together and walk away. Where you video and you talking, telling what you're doing and everything.
Yeah, Bob Benny, he films and watches, explains what his crew is doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, he does it the smart way.
It helps when you got 2 or 3 people doing that too, you know.
It does, doesn't it?
It looks like
Yeah.
it goes really fast when he's doing it.
Yeah.
He's got a couple of them that is pretty fast. They get ahead
yeah.
of him.
Yeah. Especially that old girl that can mark a queen with one hand.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, Selena.
Well, they've been working for him for quite a while.
Good time, Charlie. I guess that's Mr. Ed's buddy.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, Mr. Ed has a cameraman too.
When my wife goes in and videos for me, they all turn out pretty good, but she don't get into all that. And she'll go help me pull honey, but she don't want to mess with the camera then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of hot when you're pulling honey.
Yeah.
Get in and get out.
Yeah, it's already aggravating dealing with all the bees and if you're in the robin season when you're pulling, and it's kind of aggravating. I don't know about you, Joey, but today the robin really started because they were on the goldenrod flow good, and I didn't have to worry about that when I was going into hives. But I went in a couple of hives today, and man, they were all over those hives. The minute
It shut down like overnight. I mean, it just shut down like somebody sawed a log in half. I like to got my little water meter hive. I like to got it robbed out. I went in and gave them some more frames and took an old one away, rubber banded one away. And time I got through videoing and closed it up, I looked around and I seen them all kind of balled up there in the front, and I could see bees dropping every now and then. I said, "Oh man, this thing's getting robbed out."
Yeah.
So I closed it up. It had a screen on it. I pulled it down, straightened it up, and stapled it closed, and walked away for a few hours. I saved them.
I'm gonna have to go tomorrow and reduce all the entrances to all my small hives, my nukes and stuff, because they're gonna start robbing. And those big hives, they fierce whenever they start robbing. Good Lord, they don't give up.
No, they don't. They don't stop.
Mm-mm.
Nope.
Well, I haven't seen any of that in mine. I mean, they're all kind of calm now. Well, welcome, Bracken. I see you made it.
Yeah, I made it.
You made it.
Yeah, I haven't caught much of what you guys are chatting about, but what's
Okay,
going
well,
on?
we'll over.
Yeah, start over from the beginning, please. From the top.
We were talking about
Long
Queens,
discussion, but it's interesting.
about Queens, and how we were like Joey here and Brad are down in Louisiana. Of course, they can start a lot earlier than most of us.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah, we start in January.
Yeah, and talking about, I got into the thing about talking about queens and replacing queens and understanding why you do it. And they were talking about replacing for where they live, because they don't really have a lot of winter. They have to replace queens every year.
Right.
I have to replace them about every 2 years. And I had talked with Troy Hall up in New Hampshire on my show, and he does it every 2 years, but he can also get away with 3 years, depending on the queen itself.
Night, Roy.
Yeah, I wish we could start doing queens in January. That'd be sweet.
What is your, I mean, you're in Utah. What is your weather? When do you start doing things and whatever?
Let's see. Last year, my bees didn't come back until April from the almonds. Let's see. I seen drone brood. Probably May-ish, maybe a little bit before May, but June you can usually breed queens.
And then when's your honey season there with? July?
Yeah, so we get a little bit of a spring flow, but it pretty much depends on the farming. A lot of the places I'm around is all agriculture, and so if the farmers let the alfalfa bloom, we'll get 4 good nectar flows throughout the summer because they'll let that crop bloom. But purple hay doesn't sell as good as green hay, so a lot of the farmers like to cut it before it blooms out because you can get more money for it.
Because it's got a higher nutrition value.
Yeah, it's kind of a
Got a higher protein value.
Yep, it's kind of a double-edged sword for where I'm a beekeeper and a farmer. Like, now I do try to let it bloom a little bit, like, because a little bit of purple hay isn't bad. It's not, as long as it's not purple. But so that usually we cut first crop. First crop's usually May-ish, middle of May. I could be a little wrong. I can't think of the exact dates, but. And then we have Russian olive trees. They bloom a little bit in the end of May. Most of our honey flow, I would say, is the springtime, and then a little bit into early summer. Then in July, it kind of slows down unless those hay fields bloom. And then we get a little bit of fall flow, but not much. It's mostly rabbit brush and goldenrod, aster, stuff like that.
Right.
Well, I'm gonna check out. I got to get up real early in the morning, so I'm gonna check
All right.
out.
All right,
All right,
JW.
JW.
Good night, y'all.
You're upside. There you go.
Yeah, I had to flip my camera here. I gotta plug. I'm using my phone. Is my speaker as loud this time? I know last time I was on.
It's
Yeah, you're
fine.
good.
Just kids are a little noisy sometimes.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll mute it every
Hey, I
time.
tell everybody I got 7 grandyoungins. I don't even notice none of that.
Yeah,
But
people who have
no,
kids understand.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I guess it's spring honey is April, May, and June is our honey flow here in Maryland for the most part. Now this year, July was a little bit extended, but after that, it's pretty much done for me. And it's locusts and poplar and stuff.
Yeah, cherry.
But anyway, we were talking about the queens and how often you requeen and stuff like that. And do you requeen every year, Bracken, or you go every couple years?
I've been going about every 2, unless I see one that's kind of being a dud. Then I'll do.
Yeah.
I'll pinch it and try to raise it. I'd like to get to where I can replace them every year, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of second-year queens do really well in my area, so it kind of just depends.
Yeah, with your experience, I mean, have you had it to where you let your queens go, let's say a third year, and then they fail on you? Let's say going through the winter or whatever.
What was that last part? I didn't quite catch.
Well, if you go, let's say a 3-year queen, have you seen where they started failing on you?
I don't. I've had a couple for 3-year queens, and I don't necessarily think they were failing. I've pinched some third years that were doing pretty good, but I pinched them for the sake of that they were a third year, and I've seen people on YouTube do it. So
Right.
it wasn't necessarily.
I guess what I'm asking is that you got yourself on a schedule where you're keeping a 2-year queen and that's it, and you're replacing it.
Yeah.
On a schedule. Okay. Yeah. See, that's something that I've learned. This is relatively, relatively new to me as far as understanding um, to regularly get rid of your queens every 2 years. That way you don't have, I call it the roller coaster ride, where 1 year up on top of the hill and you're making all kinds of bees and honey, and then the next year half your hives are dead, or you've got queen problems continuously until you finally put new queens in.
So
Yeah.
when are you pinching your queens back in the spring or fall?
Um, Mostly spring, because if I wait too far into the fall, I'll run out of time. I haven't seen a drone for a little while, and they've started to kick out drones. So if I was to pinch one now, I'd be screwed. But even in, I guess up until August, September, you could maybe push one. My buddy had one requeen, and it was in September. So there's a chance, but obviously it drops off pretty depending on the weather. It can get cold in September and be pretty cold, and we're not gonna have any success. But this year we had 80s most of October, so I probably could have requeened a lot later this year.
Well, you have snow out there, right? Do you
Oh
have
yeah,
some? Okay.
yep, we get a fair amount of snow. Um, yeah, not I mean obviously not as much as some people, but yes, we get snow,
All right.
Y'all, I'm
and
going to get
and
out
we're
of here.
hitting. Oh,
I've been listening almost the whole show, but I didn't have time to come in and sit down and talk. I've been listening on my phone, but I'm gonna get out of here. But I'm gonna still be listening.
All right, Joseph.
Joe,
See you
Glad
later,
that you
Joey.
came
Good night.
night.
right.
in. Yeah, it's
So
like
yeah, we're
myself. I'm wondering, for lack of experience, like this year I replaced my queens in the spring. Next year will be their second honey crop. And I've been advised after that honey crop is to replace them then, which that would be um, late June. I don't know. Trying to, I would have to have queens of, I'm going to try to go back to making my own queens next spring. Hopefully have queens, in the wings, I'll call them, in the mating boxes ready to be, you know, put over into my production hives and stuff like that.
yeah.
Get some of Bill's Lackshaw queens and see how they do.
I
Yeah,
like to use
see,
the summer. Oh, sorry.
we don't when we pinch queens, we don't let them make their own queen.
Oh,
We wait 3 days after we
and then
pinch and drop a queen in.
you drop a mated queen, or do you drop
Mated
a
queen.
virgin or a
Mated
mated
queen.
queen?
Yep.
Yeah,
Because
I've noticed.
we control our genetics.
Gotcha.
So and it keeps up the stock as they are. We don't have to wait for a hive to flip unless we have a hot hive and drop a new queen in. And we got to wait for it to flip. But it just continues right with the program. So we pull honey July 4th. And then after we pull honey, we'll come back and pinch. Wait 3 days and drop queen.
Nice. I've noticed that after the summer solstice, if I can get a queen mated after that summer solstice, those queens in the springtime will do phenomenal.
Yep.
They usually hit the ground running. So if I can, I like to try to get them past that mark and then replace them. I've done both. I'm still pretty new at this game. I'm only in my 4th year doing it here, and this last year I raised some of my own queens, and I had some pretty good success, and I had some duds too. But my goal is to just get to where I'm self-sufficient, and if I have queens to replace, I'll replace them every year. If I can't, I'll let them go 2 years and try. You know what I mean? Like, I don't really have a set schedule, I guess. I'm just kind of a shoot from the hip. If I can mate 30 queens, I'll replace 30 queens.
Right.
Very good, Charlie.
Yeah. Thank you, David. David, where are you located at? What state you in? Always like to keep track of that. I was watching your video a little bit here, Bracken. Where did you get that there single uncapping capper with that uncapping tank? Or did you make that, or did you
Yeah,
find something?
no. So, I made the tank that it sits on that frame, right? The frame came with it, but I made that catch pan. It's just like a drip pan.
Yeah, but where'd you get that there?
The
Like
uncapper.
huh? Is it a
The
queen?
uncapper.
Yeah, the uncapper.
Yeah,
Where's?
it's a Cowan, and
Oh, is it?
I got it from a beekeeper just north of me a little ways that was getting out of beekeeping. He didn't know what it. Well, he kind of knew what it was, but he had never used it because he thought it needed steam.
Yeah,
So
that's what
he
it
never,
normally does.
yeah, he never used it. And then when I went and bought this extractor from him, I bought a 80 frame Datant extractor. It's radial, and he had that, and he was like, "Well, if you take this extractor, I'll throw this in with it."
Well, that was a
And I
good
was
throw.
like, "Okay, sweet." And I took it, not knowing, at the time, I didn't know what it really was or what it was. I mean, I knew it was an uncapper, but I didn't. I was like, "Man, I don't have steam." Well, then I talked to Cayman Reynolds a little bit, and he says just get a tank, get good hoses, and put a heater in there and run your hot water and just run hot water through it. So I went and bought a 30-gallon tank, and I put those long trough heaters, that it's like a tube shaped Pringle can type thing, and I just dropped that in there, and it gets that water boiling, and I can run that through those knives, and man, it works slick.
Yeah, you could do that, or you get those like James out there in Alberta, Canada. He's got it's a steamer that you use for wallpaper or something like that. You can
Yeah,
what's it? Where do you buy them at the Home Depot or something?
they sell some at Harbor Freight. It's little mini steamers.
Really?
And you can
Mhm.
hook up the steamer to about if you got hot water, it's
Yeah,
just good.
Yeah,
They- they're
the
about as
technique
big as a 5-gallon bucket.
I just got a little water pump that I put in, and it keeps it circulating, so it stays, and man, it's worked slick. Knock
Yeah,
on
because
wood.
I mean, to describe it to the rest of you guys here, it's like those chain uncappers that Maxan has, where you go with one frame
Yeah,
up and down. Well, his thing is the same way. You just put one frame in, it goes down and out, and you just keep dropping a frame in a slot. That's all there is. There's no rack or anything like the other style that Cowan put out.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
That's an
Yeah.
early Cowan machine, I presume?
Yeah, it's got to be. I've thought about calling Cowan and seeing if they could tell me anything about it specifically, but I have no idea how old it is.
Well, you're coming out to Nobby, ain't you?
No.
You're not?
Mm-mm. Nope, I won't be out there making it.
Were you there last year or not?
Nope, I've never been.
You've never been?
Nope.
You're missing the big one.
I know. I need to get out there, but man.
I mean, it's I had a guy on another chat Friday night that's a local guy, and I said something about like this year they had 140 vendors. Yeah, but they're all selling the same thing, and I'm like, no. I said they're not all selling woodenware or whatever. I said it's you name it, they're selling it, but they're all like Cowan was there, and they had several of their $150,000 line of machines, along with a portable trailer that they had designed. Because they got an eye opener when they were at Hive Life the previous year. They did not realize the market for I'll say the sideliner. And from what I had heard, and they were like, we're leaving a lot of money on the table here. We need to cater to the sideline
Yeah.
group as not as much as the, well, along with the commercial guys.
Yeah, both.
Both, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, Brad, you'll have to go check out my video on there. It's somewhere, I don't even know what it's one of the honey uncapping or honey extracting videos or something. I bet if you diddle through some, you'll find
Yeah,
it.
I've been poking around, and
Yeah,
like I was watching your farming thing where you were, what do you call it? You're irrigating, but you're flooding. You're flooding the
flood
field.
irrigation.
And I've never seen that done before. And
Yeah, chasing water. That's always fun.
and stuff that you do in your part of the country is not even heard of around
Where do you
here.
live at again?
I live in northern Utah. I'm like
Northern Utah. Okay.
20 minutes from the Idaho border, so I'm up pretty close to the Idaho border.
His
That's far north
his
as you can get.
background is the Rocky Mountains. It's beautiful with his panoramic views and stuff. They got these mountains. Now, your water that just it wasn't beekeeping, but the water, you say it's coming from a canal way over. So that's coming from what, the Rio from the big river or somewhere's in the area?
It comes. There's a dam up in. It's called the Cutler Dam, and it's quite a ways north of us, and they block it off, and it's actually the Bear River. So the Bear River runs through Logan, Utah, and it comes out of Bear Lake, goes down into the Great Salt Lake, but it cuts through our area. But they take water out of that and they channel it through these canals for the farmers for their irrigation. So not all of it gets spilled into the river. A lot of it's our irrigation water.
Mm.
So yeah, our furthest head gate away is 2 miles. I mean, you turn the water on and it takes 3 hours, 4 hours for the water to get down there, and your water turns 7 hours. So you spend 4 hours waiting for water, and then once you get it, you start your turn and just do what you can.
Well, you have in that where you have water rights and you can only pull so much and all that kind of stuff.
Yep, everybody has an allotted time. Each head gate has a specific amount and specific times. Like this, it changes every year, but this year our turn started on like Tuesday at 1 o'clock in the morning and ended Wednesday at 2 in the afternoon. Whatever our shares are. But next year it'll start on a Friday or a Thursday, and you'll still have your same amount of time. It'll just depend on when it starts.
I see.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our average rainfall in Utah is like 6 inches a year, if that. So I live in a desert.
Yep. It's surprising that people who do live in the desert areas can actually keep bees and actually make honey from what little bit of things do grow.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I know, like
impressive.
Brian Flower Street Honey there, he lives in Denver, Colorado, and I've seen some videos of his, and I'm like, where are the bees ever getting anything? I mean, it's pure desert, or not sand, but it's just scrub brush and whatever out there.
Sagebrush, yeah, that salt grass. Yeah, my bees have got to get it from the farmers. There's not a lot of ditch bank weeds, like there used to be. A lot of the farmers spray, but we try to, there's some clover and stuff around that's kind of wild that spreads along the river. I think the Bear River provides a really good source. There's quite a few different plants down there that the bees forage off of. I'm not super smart with I know of alfalfa, I know of Russian olives, I know of aster, you know what I mean, lavender plants, stuff like that. Very little, but as far as native stuff, I'm not 100%.
You have
sure
lavender
what they
farms
use.
out there.
Yeah, there is some lavender and Russian sage. That's another one that's pretty beneficial. That stuff grows like a weed out here.
Yeah.
But
Well, Bill, I don't know.
Bill, is that your skid steer in the background there?
That's skid steer on the farm.
That's your farm skid steer?
Yep.
Do you use it for bees too?
Yep.
Is it track or is it wheel? I can't
It's
tell from the
wheel.
picture. It's
It's wheel.
wheeled.
Yep.
Do you have a have you ever had a tracked one?
Yeah, there's one here on the farm. Yes,
Which one do you prefer?
the tracked one, but that's not it. We have to use what we can get at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Close. Yeah, I understand that, but
Yeah.
But he's
I'm
not
thinking
moving.
about,
He doesn't move bees like you do, I think, Bracken. I'm not sure.
yeah, I'm thinking about purchase. Well, we don't actually have a skid steer on the farm. We got a couple loaders, some tractors, enclosed cab tractors and stuff, but I'm thinking about purchasing a skid steer, and I'm trying to decide what I want for bees.
Yeah. Just remember, don't when you're moving the bees with a skid steer, idle it down. Move them slow.
Yeah, for sure. I run one for work fairly often, and yeah, they can be pretty jerky. And I've noticed with the track ones, if you go over like a log or something, there's kind of that tipping point.
Yep.
Whereas with a wheel, you can kind of, I don't know how to explain this. You can kind of walk over it. You know, you can kind of feel the bump, feel it. With that track one, you feel it, and then it.
Yep.
It's just like a regular, like a cat dozer or something like
Yeah, it's
that.
like a track loader.
Right.
Same purpose.
And all.
Well, it's 10:15, gentlemen.
Yep.
Yeah, I got a daughter here that's needing some attention, so I might have to jump off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting ready to shut down here, Bracken. But
I appreciate you coming out.
Yeah, I'll send you. There'll be another one tomorrow night if you want to jump on.
Yeah, see what I can do. I'd love to get to know you guys and get talking. And yeah, I think it's
Well,
awesome.
what is it, Bill? It's Bill. You don't
Bees all day.
But is that how you get to your YouTube
Bees
channel?
all day.
Yeah, I found it. I just subscribed, so I'll get notifications from you.
Yeah, everybody, don't forget to smash the like button and the subscribe button.
Yeah, go check out our channel.
If you're not already subscribed. Well, thank you all for coming out, and we'll see you Friday night on Charlie's Chat.
Yeah, we'll be here Friday night.
Yeah.
Good night. Say goodbye.
Night.
Bye.
Bye.